Hello, it's Katrina at the Sewing Studio. We often get asked, what can we do with a charm pack? So today I'm going to show you that you can make 2 quilts using 1 charm pack and 1 meter of highlight fabric. So the quilt in front of me measures 35 inches by 36 inches, and the centerpiece is made using half of a charm pack and half a meter of this white fabric. Now, in addition to that, you're going to need half a meter for your fillet and binding. And depending how big a border you want to put on it, you'll probably need about a meter of a floral or contrasting fabric. But the size it finishes up is entirely up to you. I'm just going to show you how you can make this centre. And as I say, you can make 2 of these centres using 1 charm pack and 1 meter of fabric. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our charm pack, and this is always the best bit. And this one's called Fanciful Forest. What a lovely title. So I'm going to open the charm pack, and I'm going to cut all of my squares in half. Now, you can do this individually. If you've got a new blade in your rotary cutter, you can cut a stack at a time. So I'm just going to cut through those to start with. So you're cutting them in half, so they're going to measure 5 inches by 2.5 inches. And then I'm going to put those to one side. And I'm going to do the whole charm pack, but for the purposes of today, I'm just going to cut a few different colours to show you how to do this. And you would continue until you've got your whole charm pack. And then what I do is I cut the contrasting fabric. So in this case, I've used a white fabric, and I cut that into 5-inch strips, and then I subcut them all at 2.5. And then I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to join one of these to one of these. And I'm going to do quite a lot. So I'm going to do some chain piecing. So I'm going to join a piece of coloured fabric to a piece of white fabric. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to sew a few of these together. Now, if I was doing these 2 quilts, I would just sit and sew all of them together. So I'm chain piecing all of the pieces. So it's a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to stop with my needle down, pick up the next pair, and sew to the end, and then repeat that until they're all joined together. And you may have noticed there, I had to keep double checking my white fabric, because sometimes with a white on white, it's very difficult to see which is the right side and which is the wrong side. And in the past, I've chain pieced and got some of them around the wrong way. So it's always worth doing that extra check before you start sewing. I'm now going to go over to the iron and I'm going to press these. So now I'm just going to snip the threads in between where I've chain pieced all these. And then I'm going over to the iron, and then I'm going to press them with the fabric going towards the darker fabric. And when you've got them all pressed, you're going to lay them out. So the first row, I'm going to start with a white square and then my coloured square. And I'm just going to alternate white and the coloured square. And the reason I said about pressing the fabric to the darker side is for two reasons. One, that your fabric doesn't then show through, particularly when you're using white. But also when you come to do your next row, you're going to lay it out the other way round. So you're going to lay it out with your coloured piece of fabric first and then your white, and so on like this. And what that then does is it allows you to join it up where you've got the two seams going the opposite way. So when you've done your whole row like this, so you would lay them out so you have 6 blocks going across, and then you would join all of those together, and then you would join them to your next row. And what it does by pressing the opposite way, it allows you, when you come to join this up, to see that your seams are going the opposite way, so they butt together, so you get a nice crisp join and your fabric matches perfectly. So you would just continue until you'd used half of your pack, and then you would use the other half for your second quilt. And it is that easy. So this is absolutely perfect for a beginner. So I'm then just going to go back to show you the other quilt to show you how we finished it off with a fillet and a border and some binding. So we're now back looking at the finished quilt again. So you can see, as I was explaining about your white fabric and then your patterned or coloured fabric, and that's your blocks that you've joined together like this. So you do that until you've got them going 6 by 7, or alternatively, if you wanted to make one bigger quilt, you could just lay all of them out and you would have one quilt, but it would be much bigger. So it's entirely up to you. So then on this one, I've put a navy fillet, and this was cut at 1 inch and folded in half. I've put a border on this, and the border was cut. Let me just measure, because it was a while ago that I made it and I've forgotten what it measures. So the border was cut at 4 inches, so that gives me a 3.5 inch finish on my border. And then I've put binding, which is the same as the fillet. And on the back, I've just used the same white fabric that I've used for my pieces in between. And then to quilt it, I've just done a wavy line, and I've done the wavy line coming down either side of each of those blocks. So if we refer to that as our block, the wavy line comes down and then goes across there. So that is our block. And I've just used a white thread and just done a very easy wavy line. And I do like a wavy line when I've got straight blocks. I think it just breaks it up and finishes it off. And my cameraman has just said that he thinks these remind him of soldiers, when you have a boiled egg and soldiers. So maybe that's what we're going to call the quilt. Anyway, as always, have fun, enjoy it, make it your own, and I look forward to seeing you next time here in the sewing studio.